Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, so today we're tackling something that I know, might sound a little dry at first. Inventory management. You're probably picturing a guy with a clipboard counting dusty boxes in a massive warehouse, right? Well, scratch that image. We're actually going to reframe this whole topic into a really dynamic, high-stakes balancing act of risk and reward. Because honestly, it's the absolute lifeblood of a company's working capital and totally vital to their financial survival.
Just think about it for a second. Have you ever walked into your favorite store ready to buy something and they're completely sold out? Super frustrating. Or on the flip side, what about walking into a shop where there are just massive, overflowing clearance bins of stuff nobody wants? This is exactly why inventory isn't just about storing boxes. It's a make-or-break financial strategy. You get it wrong and you either freeze all your cash and unsold junk, or you literally send your frustrated customers right into the arms of your competitors. No way around.
So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the balancing act, then look at why hold inventory, dig into the cost of doing business, open up the manager's toolkit, uncover the magic EOQ number, and wrap up with the final metric. Let's get right to it.
Part 1. The balancing act and the types of inventory. Before we can even start balancing the scales, we need to know what exactly we're weighing. You see, inventory isn't just one giant monolithic thing. An organization usually deals with three very distinct types. First up, we've got raw materials. These are the absolute basics, the raw ingredients you buy from suppliers. Then we move to work in progress. Think of these as the semi-finished goods that are sitting right there on the assembly line. And finally, we get to finished goods, the ultimate, ready-to-sell products. By following a product all the way from its raw inception to its final form, we can perfectly track the life cycle of a company's investment. And trust me, every single stage requires its own specialized management. Moving into Part 2, why businesses hold inventory and the core motives behind it. Because, well, if holding onto all this stuff is so risky and expensive, why bother doing it at all?
It's actually fascinating when you look at the psychology here. There are a few primary motives. The transactions motive is pretty straightforward. You just want to keep your day-to-day production and sales running smoothly, no hiccups. But the precautionary motive? That's really interesting. Just like you might hoard a bunch of groceries before a massive winter storm hits, businesses have to safeguard themselves against sudden unpredictable swings in supply and demand. Then there's the speculative motive. This is where a business might actually stockpile a raw material because they've got a hunch its price is going to shoot up very soon. Oh, and sometimes you just want to score a sweet bulk quantity discount.
Of course, none of this happens in a vacuum, right? Unpredictable factors are basically the villains in our story here. We're talking about things like overall economic stability, how reliable your suppliers are, and lead time, which is literally just how long it takes for an order to actually arrive after you place it. These factors constantly stress test how you manage your stock. And hey, if you're selling perishables, like fresh fruit or dairy, that expiration date is essentially a ticking clock that entirely dictates your game plan. All right. Part 3, the cost of doing business and weighing those risks. This is where the tightrope walk we've been talking about gets incredibly real. Here is the absolute crux of the issue. Every single item you hold or even just order carries a very real, very specific financial weight. This sets up our balancing act perfectly. On one side of the scale, you have ordering costs. These are the expenses that hit you every single time you make an order. Things like transportation fees, clerical work, the time spent calling suppliers. But on the other side of the scale, you have carrying costs. This is the money bleeding out to pay for warehouse storage, insurance, and the massive opportunity cost of having your capital literally locked up in cardboard boxes. It's a total trap. Order too often and your ordering costs absolutely skyrocket. But if you try to fix that by ordering massive batches all at once, those carrying costs will drag you right down to the bottom.
And we absolutely cannot forget the ultimate penalty for falling off this tightrope completely. Let your inventory drop to zero and bam, you get hit with shortage costs. We are talking emergency rush shipments, completely halted production lines, and honestly, the most devastating cost of all, destroying your customers' loyalty. Once you fail to deliver on a promise, getting that goodwill back is incredibly hard.
Which brings us to Part 4, the manager's toolkit and techniques for control. To actually survive this environment where costs are attacking from everywhere, we need the right tools.
First up is ABC analysis. Now, managers only have so much time and energy in a day. This technique is brilliant because it highlights that a mere 20% of your physical items, we'll call them Category A, often make up a staggering 70% of your total inventory value. Contrast that with Category C items, which make up half of the stuff sitting on your shelves, but only account for maybe 5% of the total value. By classifying everything like this, it's a real game changer. Managers suddenly know exactly where to hyper-focus their strategic attention.
Another tool is the just-in-time method, or JIT. This was famously pioneered by Toyota, and it is intense. The goal here is to literally eliminate overproduction by making sure materials arrive on the factory floor precisely when the assembly line needs them, not a minute sooner. It is absolutely beautiful for minimizing carrying costs, but wow, does it require total, unflinching reliance on your suppliers. If a delivery truck gets a flat tire, the whole system stops. There is zero tolerance for errors.
Okay, let's pull back for a second to something simpler but equally crucial, setting a reorder point. You definitely don't want to wait until the bins are totally empty to reorder. Instead, you figure out your lead time, again, how many days it takes for a supplier's truck to show up, and you just multiply that by your average daily usage. It is that simple. The resulting number tells you the exact inventory level that should trigger a new purchase, virtually guaranteeing the new stuff arrives right before your current stock hits zero.
Moving on to part 5, the magic EOQ number. Honestly, this is the absolute climax of our balancing act, the ultimate weapon.
It's called the economic order quantity, or EOQ for short, and it is the holy grail metric of inventory management. Think back to that crazy seesaw between ordering costs and carrying costs. EOQ is the exact method that calculates the Goldilocks number, the just right amount of inventory to purchase on every single order so that the combined total of those two massive costs is kept at its absolute minimum.
As the source text hits the nail on the head right here, every decision is a basic risk and return trade-off. We've spent a lot of time talking about how stressful these conflicting costs are, right? Well, EOQ is the cold, hard, mathematical solution to that exact trade-off.
And honestly, seeing it visually is where the magic really clicks. Take a look at this. Notice how, as your order size gets bigger, your ordering costs naturally drop. That's that blue line swooping downwards. But at the exact same time, your holding costs, the black line, are climbing higher because, well, you're paying to store more stuff. Now look really closely at that red U-shaped curve, which represents your total costs. See how it dips to its lowest possible point, exactly where the blue and black lines cross paths? Boom! That specific spot on the bottom axis, that is your economic order quantity.
Now, I know the formula looks a little bit intimidating at first glance, but it's actually incredibly elegant. You're just taking your total annual demand, multiplying it by the cost of placing a single order, and then balancing all of that against how much it costs to hold just one unit in your warehouse over the whole year. Slap a square root over the whole shebang, and you've got a highly precise, data-driven target to aim for every single time you call up your supplier.
Finally, part 6, the final metric, the inventory turnover ratio. Because at the end of the day, we need to know how all this theory translates into actual, measurable financial health.
This ratio is basically a company's final scorecard. The math is super simple. Take your cost of goods sold and divide it by your average inventory. What this number tells you is exactly how many times a business has managed to sell through and completely restock its inventory over a given period, like a fiscal year.
So, what does this actually mean for you? Well, you are definitely looking for a high ratio. High turnover means your balancing act is flawless. You've got fast-moving products, super efficient management, and the cash is flowing. But a low ratio? That's a massive blinking red flag. It means things are moving sluggishly. You might have obsolete products sitting around. It basically tells everyone that a huge chunk of your company's valuable capital is literally trapped inside unsold boxes, gathering dust, completely useless for anything else.
When a business takes these concepts seriously, using ABC analysis, calculating their EOQ, tracking that turnover ratio, the results are completely transformative. You stop overstocking, you prevent massive shortages, everything in the warehouse is easy to access, overall efficiency goes through the roof, and you stop wasting money on written-off stock. Ultimately, mastering this delicate scale does one absolutely crucial thing. It directly maximizes the wealth of the owners.
But I want to leave you with something to really chew on here. That brilliant EOQ model we spent so much time on, it relies on some pretty strict textbook assumptions. Things like perfectly constant customer demand and instant, entirely predictable deliveries. But let's be real, we live in a messy world. So given those rigid limitations, how on earth do modern managers maintain their balance when suddenly massive, unpredictable global supply chain disruptions strike, and that entire tightrope just starts violently shaking? It's a huge challenge, and it's what turns inventory management from a pure math problem right back into a true art form. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.